There's a season for everything, and a time for every matter under the heavens. A time for giving birth, and a time for dying. A time for planting, and a time for uprooting what was planted. A time for killing, and a time for healing. A time for tearing down, and a time for building up. A time for crying, and a time for laughing. A time for mourning, and a time for dancing. A time for throwing stones, and a time for gathering stones. A time for embracing, and a time to avoid embraces. A time for searching, and a time for losing. A time for keeping, and a time for throwing away. A time for tearing, and a time for repairing. A time for keeping silent, and a time for speaking. A time for love, and a time for hating. A time for war, and a time for peace. What do workers gain from all their hard work? I've observed the task that God has given human beings. God has made everything fitting in its time, but has also placed eternity in their hearts, without enabling them to discover what God has done from beginning to end. Welcome to the longest night of the year, the winter solstice. We here at Mount Tam Church, who are hosting this service, want you to know that this is not solely for Mount Tam members. It's not solely for people of the Christian faith. We open this service for everybody, knowing that during this time of year where the words merry and joy and happy are commonplace, yet at the same time during this season, we are carrying a wide variety of emotions in our hearts, not just those that look good on a Hallmark card. For those of us who have lost, for those of us who have broken relationships, for those of us who are struggling, some of those pains, some of those sorrows can be amplified during this time of year. And so the purpose of this service is to give you space, to give you space where there's music playing and where there is silence, where there is speaking and reading, and when there is just meditation. And we hope that you will feel comfortable here. We hope that you will know that you are always welcome in our community at any point of year, but especially during this time of year. If you have not yet gotten a rock and a paper star and a pen and a program, you're invited to do so. There's no problem if you miss that. Just go and get that as you are able to, because you will need those as we go along in the program. I do want to let you know that this service is set up to be participatory. These elements are going to allow you to be active in the service. There's going to be some movement. That being said, if ever you're not comfortable with one of the activities and you don't want to participate, that is totally okay. None of these activities are obligatory, but you are welcome to participate in them during the service. I believe, yes. So in addition to myself, Luke Ham, I'm co-officiating this service with Pastor Norma Jean Powell, who is getting mic'd up and will be up here shortly. But we welcome you, and we know some of you are here through Norma Jean's connection to you, and I know we're so glad to welcome you in this time. We have a responsive reading based on Psalm 22. And I am going to lead us in this. You may remain seated during this responsive reading. My God, Why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, so far from the words of my groaning? O my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. In you our ancestors trusted. They trusted and you delivered them. It was you who brought me from the womb. Since my mother bore me, you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near, and there is no one to help. God does not despise the affliction of the afflicted. God does not hide from me. When I cry to God, God hears me. Thanks be to God. Amen. Allow me to share with you. Actually, before I do that, we're going to fully center ourselves in this time with music. So while the music plays, I invite you to pay attention to your feet grounded on the floor or your back against the pew. And while I know this season has many worries and thoughts and planning and all of the things that we're going through our minds right now, I invite you to do your best to clear those for a moment and just fully embrace your presence here in this space. When you lose someone you love, your life becomes strange. The ground beneath you gets fragile. Your thoughts make your eyes unsure. And some dead echo drags your voice down, where words have no confidence. Your heart grows heavy with loss. And though this loss has wounded others too, no one knows what has been taken from you when the silence of absence deepens. Flickers of guilt kindle regret for all that was left unsaid or undone. There are days when you wake up happy, again inside the fullness of life, until the moment breaks and you are thrown back onto the black tide of loss. Days when you have had your heart back, you're able to function well, until in the middle of work or encounter, suddenly, with no warning, you are ambushed by grief. It becomes hard to trust yourself. All you can depend on now is that sorrow will remain faithful to itself. More than you, it knows its way and will find the right time to pull and pull the rope of grief until that coiled hill of tears has reduced to its last drop. Gradually, you will learn acquaintance with the invisible form of your departed. And when the work of grief is done, the wound of loss will heal, and you will have learned. You have learned to wean your eyes from the gap in the air and be able to enter the hearth in your soul where your loved one has awaited your return all the time. As I mentioned, one of the items you were invited to get was a star. You also have a pen, and you are invited to place on that star either an image, a picture, or words of something that you are mourning during this season. It might be a person whose life on earth has come to an end. It might be a broken relationship with somebody who is still on the earth. It might be the loss of a family pet who is we know are family members. Whatever it is, whatever you're mourning this season, while the music plays, I invite you to express those feelings, those thoughts, that image onto your star.
This is a reading from The Prophet by Kahel Gabrin. Just a little background. This prophet has been stranded in exile in a city for 12 years. And finally, his ship has come, and he's ready to leave. But as he descended the hill, a sadness came upon him. And he thought in his heart, how shall I go in peace and without sorrow? Nay, not without a wound in the spirit shall I leave this city. Long were the days of pain I have spent within its walls. Long were the nights of aloneness. And who can depart from his pain and his aloneness without regret? Too many fragments of the Spirit have I scattered in these streets, and too many are the children of my longing that walk naked among these hills, and I cannot withdraw from them without a burden and an ache. It is not a garment I cast off this day, but a skin that I tear from my own hands. Nor is it a thought I leave behind me, but a heart made sweet with hunger and with thirst. Yet I can tarry no longer. The sea calls all things into her, calls me, and I must embark. If you would like to bring your stars forward and hang them on the tree, and you can, if you do not want to come forward, if you want to just hold it up, and Pastor Luke or I will come and take it and hang it for you.
The thing is to love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it, and everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it. When grief sits with you, its tropical heat thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs. When grief weighs you down like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief, you think, how can a body withstand this? Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face, no charming smile, no violet eyes. And you say, yes, I will take you. I will love you again. One thing this service is not meant to do, it is not meant to cancel out all of the burdens we are carrying with us. Yet at the same time, it is an invitation to release those things that it might be time to release. Each one of you received a rock as you came in. If you didn't, you can go get one in the basket. And while the music plays, I invite you first to think about that area of mourning or brokenness or loss or regret that it is time to let go of. Place that thought, that energy, those feelings in that rock, and when you are ready, I invite you to come forward and you can place the rock in this basket. And again, if for some reason you don't want to walk up, but you would like your rock in the basket, just lift it up and I can get it from you.
Sometimes be strong is shit advice. Sometimes sobbing till your chest aches and your eyes burn is the only answer. Sometimes the only way to the light is to surrender to the dark. Some days, be strong is tomorrow's chore. This evening, we have surrendered some of our brokenness to the dark in order to find a way to the light. At this point, we invite you to think about, to ponder a source of hope in your life. May it be as a friend. Maybe it's a pet. Maybe it's a simple smile that a stranger offered you recently. Whatever it may be, when you think of it, you're invited to come forward and light a candle here and remember that one little light that was in your life.
I invite you to join us in the Litany of Remembrance as printed in your guide. Tonight, we light this first candle to remember those whom we have loved and lost. We pause to remember clearly their faces, their voices, their bodies. We embrace and give thanks for the memories that bind them to us in this season of expectation, when all creation waits for the light. We remember them with love. May our Creator's eternal love surround them.
We light the second candle to remember the pain of loss. Loss of relationships, loss of trust, loss of jobs, loss of health, loss of faith, the loss of joy. We acknowledge and embrace the pain of the past, asking that into our wounded hearts and open hands, the divine will place the gift of peace. Shalom. Refresh, restore, renew us, Holy One, and lead us into your future. O come, thou wisdom from on high.
We light this third candle to remember ourselves this holiday season. We pause and remember the past weeks, months, and for some of us, years that have been heavy with our burdens. We acknowledge the sharpness of memory, the sadness and grief, the hurt and the fear, the anger and the pain. We accept and lay down the ways we feel we have fallen short and the times we have spent blaming ourselves and our Creator for all that we have suffered. We remember that though we have journeyed far, and that while lost, there is still new light to discover. We remember that through winter be upon us, and though the night be dark, with the turning of creation, the dawn will come, and dawn defeats the darkness. We light the fourth candle to remember faith, the gift of light and hope that the divine offers us in the stories of our faith and tradition. We remember the one who shares our burden, who shows us the way to the light, and who journeys with us into all our tomorrows. Thank you. I want to thank each of you for being here this evening. For not only do we find light in these candles, but we find light in one another. This is the first time that Mount Tam has done a service like this, to my knowledge, maybe not exactly like this for sure. And so we thank you for coming on this first journey. And we plan to make this an annual tradition to have this service. And so every year on December 21st, you're invited to mark your calendars and join us for this time. Allow me to close with a reading, but I want to let you know that at the conclusion of this reading, you are welcome to sit in this space. You're welcome to continue to meditate or pray, or just be silent. And when you are ready to exit, we just ask that you do so with respect and as silently as possible for those who are still remaining here. Allow this to be our benediction. This is entitled The Shortest Day. And the shortest day came and the year died. And everywhere down the centuries of snow-white world came people singing, dancing, to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreen. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the New Year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing the same delight this shortest day. As promise wakens in the sleeping land, they carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends, and hope for peace. And now, so do we. Here now, this year, and every year. Welcome Yule. Go in peace, my friends. Amen.